the most scariest scenes from the series The Haunting of Hill House Season 1. Trick or treat. We know it's not Halloween, but you gotta see these horrifying videos about the scariest scenes from the Netflix series The Haunting of Hill House. Or you could just take a look at your friend Larry's face. Beware. Are you ready to enter the haunted house? Let's go inside and open our eyes really wide. Nell's Ghost, Episode 1. Stephen sees a ghost. One of the most horrific encounters we find is a subtle one. The very first episode of the series ends with quite a sting. Upon arriving home to Stephen's apartment, after investigating a paranormal case for his next book, he finds his sister, Nell, in his living room. He scolds her for letting her twin Luke, a drug addict, loot his things, but is interrupted by a call from his dad, Hugh, calling to inform him that Nell returned to the Hill House and died there. What? After Stephen and his siblings spent the day ignoring Nell's calls and waving their concerns off with a shake of their heads, Nell's ghost appeared in Stephen's new apartment at the end of the premiere. Stephen learns that the thumbs up button died from not being pressed. Oh. Stephen learns that his youngest sister has died while standing next to him in his apartment. Full of dread, he turns to find Nell, who begins shivering and moaning, and her face and eyes turn gray as her mouth opens to let out a scream that has Stephen collapsing on the floor. Shirley and the Kittens, Episode 2, Open Casket. While the title may sound like a lovely 80s girl power band, sort of like Josie and the Pussycats, sadly is not. Instead, we got a profound moment with Shirley as a child. One day, as a child at Hill House, Shirley finds a box of unsubscribed kittens, and in an attempt to save them, she takes them in. Unfortunately, the kittens died in her bedroom, and they held a funeral for them. The horrific moment when she reopens the box to find a few stiff kittens lifeless is heartbreaking for cat lovers, and Shirley's odd relationship with death started from an early age. The Zombie in the Basement, Episode 3, Touch. The third episode really dials up the horror, and we give it a press of the bell icon. You should try pressing it for someone else too. You know, a certain channel. Anyway, this was when young Luke takes a trip in the dumbwaiter into the dark, unexplored basement of the mansion, after he convinces Shirley to activate the dumbwaiter with him inside. This waiter leads to an unmapped cellar, where we hear rustling sounds. A torso crawls from the shadows amidst the dusty basement, spots Luke, and moves at ungodly speeds toward the poor boy, only to be slowly approached and attacked by a zombie, his flashlight flickering on and off as he screams helplessly. No wonder why no one believed him. This is certainly the stuff of nightmares. Luke sees the floating man, Episode 4, The Twin Thing. Luke has always been unsettled that no one would stop for a second and actually believe him or his past. They always assumed that Nell was lying too. While hiding in bed one night, Luke hears knocking down the dilapidated halls of Hill House. Being the curious fella he was, he peers outside his door. The ghost of William Hill torments Luke and follows him under the bed as Luke tries to find a safe space. Sorry, but there's no safe place, Luke. Unsuspecting Victim, Episode 5, The Bent Neck Lady. This is a really sad one. From Nell's first days in Hill House as a child, she had something ominous following her. The figure of the so-called bent neck lady haunts Nell for her entire life. Her long hair and horrific face painted with anguish cause Nell to scream time and time again. Nell learns to manage her sleep with the help of a technician whom she later marries and is able to temporarily escape the bent neck lady's gaze. It was pretty obvious that the titular bent neck came from a woman having hung herself, before it had been Nell all along, cycling through her own traumas at the moment of her death. The scariest part comes earlier, when the ghost once again corners her in the hotel hallway and drops suddenly from the ceiling. Nell haunts Theo, Luke, herself as an adult, and then finally at her as a child. It's truly spine-chilling. Ghost Galore, Episode 6, Two Storms. The entire episode consists of 4 very long, uninterrupted takes, but it still manages to fit in plenty of creepiness, including statues that turn their heads between shots if you look closely, and ghosts popping from unexpected places, including a previously empty bed. Ugh. This remarkable episode is loaded more with an unspeakable tension than any big scares, but it does have one of the show's more haunting visuals. When Olivia searches the house for a missing nail during the major thunderstorm, she is oblivious to the ghostly visage of an elderly woman in one of the rooms. Theo and Nell stand nearby holding hands, until the camera moves back and we see that Theo is suddenly standing alone and Nell has completely vanished. Completely vanished? Sounds a lot like my ex. Grave Matters, Episode 7, Eulogy. Hugh and Theo see a ghost crawling across the floor of Shirley's home office towards them. But the more sudden, frightful moment comes earlier when Luke is at his sister's graveside. It's been a rough time for Luke. Bereaved, we see Luke bow down to an open grave of his twin. He felt what she left, open bonding without even being around each other. In this touching moment, his mother's dead hand reaches from the grave to pull him in. Don't make me pull this car over. Episode 8, Witness Marks. Shirley and Theo are driving quietly back to the mansion to find Luke from the grave. They fall into another argument, only to be suddenly and loudly interrupted by their dead sister, who pops up between them from the back seat and screams in their faces. The car skids off the road and Theo jumps out, running from this terrifying vision. Maybe Nell wasn't happy with her older sisters fighting while they were trying to rescue her twin brother. In other words, her appearance succeeded in allowing her sisters to forgive each other. I guess she's still looking out for them in her own weird, horrifying way. Lip Service, Episode 9, Screaming Memes. As the house continues to consume Olivia's mind, she seeks refuge in the reading room, which we later learn is her interpretation of the Red Room. But instead, she finds herself in the morgue. Olivia's worst nightmare also becomes our worst nightmare, where she has a vision of her own daughters all grown up and dead on a slab in the morgue. But it only gets worse when Nell sits up and grabs a pair of nail scissors to slowly snip apart the wire holding her jaw shut. Olivia is truly slipping over the edge, and while her fears of Nell and Luke do become true later alive, a lot of their trauma results from her actions while she was trying to protect them. Nell's future dead body clipping opening the bindings of her mouth and begging her mother to save her. And last but not least, Drag Me to Hell, Episode 10, Silence Lays Steadily. In the finale, each character has to grapple their own worst nightmare after they become trapped in the mansion's haunted Red Room. Theo finds herself suffocating under not one or two, but a whole host of gray, rotting arms. Ew. I hope they use moisturizer. It's only thanks to Nell that Theo makes it out of this one, just like the rest of her siblings. Trapped in her own mind, Theo can't seem to move past the guilt of never truly connecting with anyone. Shirley dreams that she is in a funeral home, only it's not Nell's body in the casket, but her own. Suddenly, dead Shirley sits up and starts to claw at her face, pulling her eyes out and ripping at the skin to reveal a blackened, rotting flesh underneath. On the other hand, Luke dreams about being Joey again after she ran off with the money he got from Steve. She torments him about getting high before. As Steven sits with his pregnant wife Lee, she starts to talk to him in stronger and stronger words, accusing him of being a plastic parasite. Then she lifts up her dress to reveal her pregnant belly, which begins to bulge and crack. Speaking of the finale, this scary video has come to an end. But if you want more of The Haunting of Hill House, you can check out our video, What to Expect with The Haunting of Hill House Season 2 series on Netflix. Have a scary experience in mind? Drop them in the comments. Have a good night's sleep, guys.